Chicago, like most big cities, has its fair share of unsolved crime. And in most of these cases, somebody saw or heard something. It could be a suspicious person, a car driving away from the scene, or simply overhearing somebody talking about the case. With your help, we can put these criminals behind bars where they belong. Here in Chicago, we have too many unsolved murders. We need your help. In these cases, the police department is only as strong as the citizens that get involved. Oftentimes, all the detectives need is a tip, a start. Somebody to call in and say, I saw something. Any little information that you know can be the impetus to solve the entire case. On tonight's episode, we'll be featuring the unsolved murder of Kevin Clewer. On a brisk March night in 2004, Kevin was out with friends on the north end of Halsted Street. Later that evening, Kevin returned home with a man who had introduced himself as Fernando. It was in his very own home that tragedy struck. Here's his story.
When he was first born, we're 7 years apart, so I actually remember being at the hospital and all that comes with getting a new brother. He was just a chubby, curly-headed kid, kind of hands-on. He was in the dirt, playing outside. And then we got a little older, and you know how it gets when you get a little older, and now I'm a teenager and he's not. So then he became kind of the little brother who was in the way. But that only lasted for probably about 5 years, and then we became close again.
He was always fun, he was funny. We had a good relationship.
My oldest daughter, when she was born, he was at the hospital pretty much, right as it was happening.
I remember having him around a lot when I was younger. He'd always be hanging out with my sister and I, or like joking around with us.
We'd always wait around if we were at family events and say, where's Uncle Kevin? And wait for him to get there because we knew we'd have a blast once he was there.
Let them do things we wouldn't necessarily maybe let them do, but that's what uncles and grandparents are for, right?
He was, younger, so he was kind of like the cool uncle.
I always thought he was the cool guy. He's Uncle Kevin, and just always looked up to him and how he treated everybody, with kindness and respect.
He always wanted to make sure that everybody was having a good time. If he was hosting a get-together, he was making sure going person to person to ensure everybody was having fun.
He showed up for, everything that we really had going on in our lives. My sister was in theater, and he'd come to her shows or to my soccer games. Was just that fun person that brought the energy and the fun to everything that we did as a family.
People definitely were drawn to him. He, had a lot of friends and always was hanging out with somebody new, or he was very sociable, got along with everybody.
He could bring very different people together and ensure they all had fun and they all got along. I remember he helped some friends who had a food stand out on the beach, and in the summer he helped them put that up, hung out with them, and just really wanted to make sure that he was part of some folks' lives.
He was definitely someone we looked up to and that we enjoyed hanging around and couldn't wait to go visit once he moved here to the city.
He had just moved to Chicago because he wanted to become more serious about his career. He wanted to be, as ironic as it is, in a neighborhood where he felt safe. But he really moved here to start to live his life as he wanted to as an adult and think about his career. And he came here to work for Flextronics and live downtown and just really begin life. And that's certainly not been the same ever since he was taken.
On Wednesday, March 24th, 2004, Kevin Clewer didn't show up to work. His father became alarmed. That was unusual behavior for him not to show up to work. Mr. Clewer went to his son's apartment at 3444 North Lane, found that the apartment doors were locked, had to force his way into his son's apartment. He went into his son's bedroom, which the door was closed, and found his son stabbed to death. The Chicago police were called. At the time, the 23rd District responded, and Area 3 detectives were assigned this investigation.
I didn't believe it. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It didn't make any sense. Why would somebody kill Kevin?
In a heartbeat, tragedy can strike. An accident, a bad medical outcome, or a sudden death. If you or a loved one has been injured and someone else may be at fault, contact Craig Manarino and Amanda Brassfield today to discuss your legal options. For nearly 20 years, we have represented individuals and their families for injuries caused by carelessness and negligence. And now, we would like to help you. Call Craig and Amanda at 312-782-2573. Let us help you today.
On March 24th, 2004, at approximately 6 p.m., police units from the 23rd District arrived to 3444 North Elaine as a response to a 911 call of a person stabbed. They found a male laying on the floor in his bedroom who was the victim of a vicious attack and stabbed numerous times about the body. That person was later identified as Kevin Clewer.
Spoke to him after we had been together on Valentine's Day. It was a short conversation, and I think I said, I'll call you back, and I never did.
Pam had gotten a call that Kevin had never shown up at work.
She called my work a number of times and left me a couple messages saying, you know, Kevin's work called me, something's wrong, and I was in a series of meetings all day. So I didn't get the messages until later, and after listening to the message, I thought, you know, Kevin's fine. You're overreacting. This is nothing. He's going to be fine. And she's like, no, he always calls me.
Kevin was out with several friends at several gay bars off Halstead Street, including Sidetracks and Little Jim's. Friends who were with Kevin spoke about a subject that the victim was talking to. As the evening progressed, Kevin was spending more time with this subject, and he had introduced himself as Fernando.
She had asked Jim to go and check.
When my dad got there and was unable to reach him, and he didn't answer his phone and didn't answer the doorbell, but his car was in the parking lot.
Toward the end of the evening, the victim, Fernando, and another friend of the victim's chose to leave Little Jim's and head home for the evening. Kevin's friend walked with Fernando and the victim. During his conversation with Fernando and the victim, they were both getting along really well. Eventually, this friend went one way, and Kevin and Fernando went toward Kevin's apartment on Elaine.
So my dad said, I have to go in, so my father rang one of the neighbors who let him into the building.
Mr. Clewer went to his son's apartment, found that the apartment doors were locked, had to force his way into his son's apartment. He went into his son's bedroom and found his son stabbed to death.
My dad found him. And then my dad called my mother, and then my mom called me.
My mom, my sister, and I, we had just gone to the grocery store to get some stuff because we were going to take a weekend trip into the city. We were actually going to meet up with my uncle.
We came home and my dad was on the phone, and we could tell just something wasn't right.
I heard him say, "Are the police there?"
I think he was trying to, not have us here right away. I remember being outside our house and he had said, Kevin's been stabbed.
I just remember just the sound of her voice, and she was hysterical, as you would expect, just over and over saying, he's dead, he's dead.
Jim had called me. He was very agitated, and he just said that he was at Kevin's and he found him, and he says, I think he's dead. You have to call the police.
We didn't get all the details right away, but we basically just dropped everything and got in the car and we were on the road.
I mean, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of, we have to go, we have to get there, we have to be there. We didn't know what to do.
And then I do know when I got there, initially they wouldn't let me up because it was a crime scene. Jim called me and he said, "When are you going to get here?" And I said, "I'm already here. They won't let me up." I could hear him yelling in the background that he said, "My wife is down there. I want her up here immediately."
We ended up getting dropped off at my aunt's house, and I remember seeing it on the news.
And so we saw the news story about it. I could see his apartment building, and I think that's kind of when it really sunk in that it was for real.
I can't believe this is happening.
We just all stood in their living room watching this news story about my uncle, which is a pretty surreal experience. You never really think you'll be watching something like that.
Once investigators arrived to the apartment, the crime scene was vicious. The victim was stabbed numerous times. They were able to call in our special forensics evidence response team to process the scene. While they were doing that, they were able to learn several facts regarding our victim and the things that took place just prior to this event.
I didn't believe it. I mean, I couldn't believe it. To think that somebody intentionally killed him, I just couldn't comprehend it.
On March 24th, 2004, at 6 p.m., Chicago Police Unit responded to a 911 call of a person stabbed at 3444 North Elaine. When the first responders arrived to the scene, it was discovered that Kevin Clewer was stabbed to death numerous times.
It's hard to lose a brother. I can't imagine what it's like to lose a kid.
I was kind of more stunned. I didn't really know what to think or do. I didn't really want to believe it.
I saw what that did to my father and to my mom. And I said, we'll find this out. We'll find out who did this.
We just were always going to, handing out materials, going to, like I say, all these different police departments. It took a lot out of him.
I think, what happened with Kevin clearly put a lot of stress on both of them, and they had a hard time dealing with it.
Some things you can understand, but a murder, and especially such a gruesome one, because he was stabbed 41 times, so somebody had to be pretty mad at him for whatever reason, and we don't know why.
For murders like this, we have special detectives and forensic investigators who specifically come out for really, really gruesome scenes like this. They were able to process this scene, process the victim. We were able to learn that there were several items taken from the victim by the offender who did this murder. During the course of the evidence being processed, there was biological evidence recovered, as well as other forensic evidence that we could link the offender to the scene with.
It was very hard. It was very hard on everybody.
It definitely changed the dynamic of our family a lot.
My mom passed away just about a year, it was I think a year and 2 weeks if I recall, right after Kevin. And then my dad 2 weeks after that.
My dad lost, his brother and both his parents in a little over a year.
Things are a little bit more somber now, not having them there, and everyone notices that void of not having, him or my grandparents there. It has a lasting effect. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it.
It would be a lot better if they were all here.
Investigators were able to talk to several friends he was out with. We were able to also identify a potential suspect or person of interest. That subject was seen by several different people talking to the victim, and at one point leaving with the victim and heading to his apartment.
It would be nice to find out who did it. Like I say, not that, we'll have closure. Everybody says you'll have closure. It's like, closure. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't stop all the years of missing somebody. Kevin was a son of my heart. They weren't my blood children, but they were still mine.
No stone was left unturned, talking to people in Chicago, to talking to people in the suburbs, outside the state, and through Interpol. Different investigations have been done to try to aid in identifying who this Fernando is. We have identified several Fernandos. Those people were ruled out as being the Fernando. However, this Fernando who left with Kevin and ended up in his house is our suspect.
This past year, I really thought a lot about what it means, and it made me really think long and hard about Kevin and who killed Kevin.
Coming forward and being honest, that's the ultimate freedom, and it would help our family and having closure and feeling like, there's finally peace for my uncle and for the rest of my family, for my grandpa and grandma too.
Hi, I'm Lisette Guillen from Case Files Chicago, and we like to feature your case on our show. If you know of an unsolved homicide from the Chicago area, our team wants to help you close the case. Please visit our website at www.casefileschicago.com. While you're there, you can also view our database of unsolved murders that need your assistance. Only by working together can we solve these crimes and help heal our city. Thank you, Chicago, and stay safe.
In a heartbeat, tragedy can strike. An accident, a bad medical outcome, or a sudden death. If you or a loved one has been injured and someone else may be at fault, contact Craig Manarino and Amanda Brassfield today to discuss your legal options. For nearly 20 years, we have represented individuals and their families for injuries caused by carelessness and negligence. And now, we would like to help you. Call Craig and Amanda at 312-782-2573. Let us help you today.
On Wednesday, March 24th, 2004, Kevin Clewer didn't show up to work. Kevin was out with several friends. Eventually, this friend went one way, and Kevin and Fernando went toward Kevin's apartment on a lane. At approximately 6 p.m., his father became alarmed. Mr. Clewer went to his son's apartment at 3444 North Lane. He went into his son's bedroom, which the door was closed, and found his son stabbed to death.
A long time ago, a detective told me the only way this is going to be solved is when somebody says what they know.
No one deserves to feel what he went through or the repercussions of what happened that our family has.
I can't imagine if you know what happened, it doesn't weigh on you, that it doesn't come with a great deal of pain and stress and heartache. And I think there's freedom that comes with letting that go.
I understand that people get heated and things happen in the moment. Imagine if this had happened to a member of your family. How would you feel? And, would you want those answers as well?
By all accounts, Kevin was just a very well-liked individual. His family loved him, his friends loved him. They described him as very personable. He worked hard, he did what he could for his friends and family.
I do forgive the person who did this, but that doesn't mean that justice still shouldn't happen.
We are very involved still in wanting to know what happened. My uncle deserves justice brought for what happened to him. No one, no matter what you've done in your life, deserves to have that happen to you.
This murder took place in 2004. We really need the community's help in solving this crime for Kevin and his family. The viciousness of the attack requires justice.
How could somebody live with either doing that or knowing that? And it's like, we impose our standards on somebody and they don't obviously have those feelings. If somebody should know, it would be wonderful for them to come forward and just give the information to the police.
or if they aren't comfortable with that, reach out to a member of our family. We're still very actively keeping an eye on things and, trying to figure out what happened that night. So please don't be afraid to reach out.
I do believe that I have a role in helping to make sure that this still remains out there, that people don't forget. And that for Kevin and my parents, I did what I said I was going to.
At this time, we are looking for a subject by the name of Fernando. Investigators spoke to several people who were able to meet Fernando and provide them with a description. A composite sketch was done. The subject is described as a male Hispanic, light-skinned, had a Spanish but European type accent. He's approximately 5'4", 5'5", about 140 pounds. An athletic build, wearing blue jeans with a white long-sleeve shirt. He also introduced himself as Fernando to everybody, and then said that he was a waiter in several different restaurants throughout the Chicagoland area.
I think if we're honest with who we really want to be, and that is really weighing on an individual, that they should come forward and do what's right for them and what's right for our family.
What Kevin went through, what was done to him, needs to be answered. And the only way we can do it is if the public steps forward. Any information that they have on this Fernando, they should contact the Chicago Police Department, Area North Detective Division, myself, Detective John Campbell, at 312-744-8261.
He murdered one person, and in 14 months, 3 people were dead. The pain doesn't stop.
We all love him, we miss him. He definitely influenced how we grew up.
We had a good relationship, and brothers don't talk about loving each other, and it certainly would be different if you knew it was the last call you were going to have. And I would have to say that. I would have to reiterate how proud I was of him and what he was doing, and the man he had become. I knew that, and so I would want him to know that I recognize that.
The cases featured on tonight's episode remain unsolved, and we need your help. If you have any information on tonight's episode or any of the cases featured on the show, please give the detectives a call. We need our communities to come together so we can take back our streets and make our neighborhoods safe again.